These are my 3 tips for drawing with pens. So the first tip is get the right materials. The second tip is use different techniques. And the third and final tip is practice, practice, practice. So the first right material is the paper. So I use Strathmore drawing paper, and this is 70-pound paper. And what that means is it's a measurement from kind of pounds per 500 sheets, which is like 1 ream of paper. And, it means the paper is actually heavier. So 70 pound has some weight to it, so it's less likely to rip or tear. And you'll see in sketchbooks, you often have less weight to the paper, which makes it more difficult to kind of be aggressive with some of your drawing techniques. And this would be like a hot press when the ream is being made, and that just means the paper is going to be smooth. And if you're drawing with pens, you want smooth paper. So when you're getting a drawing pad or any type of paper, make sure you feel the paper, make sure it's smooth. The second most important piece of drawing with pens, it's different material, is getting the right pens. And I've tried probably hundreds of different types of pens because I've been drawing my entire life. The past probably 10 years, I've focused on only using these Micron pens. And it's Micron by Sakura. It's Pigma Micron. It's archival ink, and you get a lot of different tips. So that's a 005, which is a very fine tip. Prior to that was a 2. Prior to that was an 8. Prior to that was a paintbrush rather than a pen. And because it's acid-free ink and archival, it already dries, it doesn't bleed, it won't smear, as you see. And as you're drawing, having ink that doesn't smear as you're drawing with it is exceptionally important, just to save your sanity, but also it makes for a better drawing. And so once you have, the paper and the correct pen and a whole set of pens, I have next to me right now, I have about 20 different type of Micron pens and brushes. Then it's you use the pens in order. I use a 2 or a 1 to kind of start with an outline of what I want to draw. Sometimes I start with the eye of an animal or bird and then draw outward from that, just because it's a good center point for me. For this drawing, I'm just doing an outline, just, mainly because it's a tutorial. And I'll do this outline. Spoiler alert, this is a draft. I'm looking off camera at some pictures I took of a draft in Wild Country Safari with my family down in Florida. And even at that point, I like to take pictures of the animals knowing that I'm going to draw them again. And right away, I start using different techniques. When you're doing those little dots that you saw, that's stippling. And that gives a nice texture and like a lighter, less heavy technique. And then I'll also do hatching or feathering. So this is feathering. It's just you have an angle to the pen and you kind of draw quickly, brushing it out. And again, I tried different techniques. So this is just a straight line. and then I'll go into hatching some more. And to do this as you're practicing, it probably makes sense to sketch it out with like an F pencil so you can erase it. This is when you're using the microns, it's really easy to erase. So right here, I create like the shadow by doing, this is just hatching, just this quick straight lines, a little stippling, and then here goes the cross hatching, which you see immediately gives it a little more depth and interest. And the more you use these different techniques, the more interesting your drawing is going to be because it has some depth. And so you use the different techniques and you use the different size pen tips, and you create just a more interesting piece of art or drawing. What I was saying before too, like you can use an F pencil, which just means it's a very like hard tip pencil that you can sketch out something before you start drawing. And especially with the microns, once you're done and you want to get rid of the pencil, you just erase it. I like to not sketch things out all the time, so I can just get to drawing right away. But when I was first drawing, I'm sure I used pencil more. Again, this is stippling a little to create a nice texture. And this is a draft, so that's kind of its wrinkly skin a little. So rather than having kind of the strong lines, I'll do the stippling. Here's some more cross hatching. And as you can probably hear in the background, I always listen to some music as I'm drawing because it just makes it more fun. It's a little Pandora. I'm still using the 2 tip pen. I draw pretty quickly sometimes. I don't know, just because. And it's part of this is I'm trying to model with the pen, so as if you were drawing with a pencil. You can use the shading and the cross hatching to really try to get the shadows that you want. And I found too, if the pen's kind of drying out a little bit, that makes it even easier to do some of the shading. Here, those were tiny hatches around the ear, and I didn't go all the way up to the line because that's from observation of what the draft actually looked like. You have the strong line at the end of the ear, but then there's like a light flowing through. So I didn't do the hatching all the way up to the ear. And again, here I'm starting the giraffe dots, and then when I kind of finish up, I make sure I do a little cross hatching. So a lot of it's just the hatching to get the shape, and then cross hatching to get the real effect of what the giraffe's dots look like. And I'll eventually get to the eye, and then I'll use the 8 tip pen, so you get the darker ink. And that also allows you to, I was going to say I often use the brush too, and you'll see some of my hyperlapse videos when it gets really dark ink in there to get the nice contrast. I'm using one of the micron brushes. And again, just using all the different tips, and then using a lot of the different techniques of like hatching, which is just aligned. One, just having a solid line is a nice technique. You'll see later on with the ear, I even like scribble. Scribbling's a nice technique to give another texture to your pen and inks. And the more you just practice doing these different techniques, you might overwork it at first, but you get used to holding the pen. You get used to how the different techniques kind of blend into each other as you're kind of molding the face of the animal that you want to that you want to draw. I'll let the video continue to play out so you can see and observe. And again, I draw, like the final one is practice, so I draw a little bit every day, and it's just getting used to having the pen in your hand, having it, at the correct angle that feels most comfortable for you and the movement of your hand. And the more you just draw and spend like even 15 minutes trying to draw from real life and observing kind of the different shadows and how things look and trying to translate that with the pen, the better you'll get. And if you have any other questions or want me to draw anything or show you how to draw anything, just let me know or post in the comments. And happy drawing. Thank you.